Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give our praises to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rakah Kodash, double honors unto the apostles and elders of great millstone, peace and salutation unto the 144,000. Brother Kyle here, back with another quick lesson, Lord willing, through the Spirit to be edifying, right, and fulfilling, right, as you can see by the title. It's called Don't Get Confused About Where They Live and Their Nationality, right, because there seem to be chicks out there who get confused, which is a regular thing for a chick to be confused at this point, but they get confused by when they see certain, what do you call it, you know I don't want to say title is not the right word, but they will put it this way. There's some prophets be called like, is the comment that I saw, they say Uriah the Hittite, right? So the J got confused by that, which he got confused by his nationality and where he lived, right? Because Uriah was called a Hittite because he lived there, right? But he was an Israelite, you understand? So I just put together a few precepts, with a few other prophets, a few prophets that were called, by the place that they live, right? Because also you have to keep in mind that that is something even to this day, right? Like down here in Trinidad, they will call us Trinidadians. Over in America, they will call them African American, which really make no damn sense, and all these different things. Mexico, they call them Mexicans, etc., etc., right? So let's go into a few. But first, I want to read James 1 and 1 just to prove that it's Israelites this whole thing dealing with, right? Because we already know the Old Testament, right? It's always Israel. Anywhere you go, even a Christian could see that, right? It's the New Testament where they really, think that the Lord changed, and where the Lord didn't really change, So let's read James 1 and 1. It says, James is servant of the Most High and of the and of the Lord Yahushua Mashiach to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greeting, right? So that's dealing with the 12 tribes of Israel. You understand? So this book was written, right, for the Israelites. You understand? So now let's go to that story in First Kings. First Kings 17 and 1. Right? So this one is dealing with Elijah, right? As you can see here. It says, and Elijah the Tishbite, who was found, Salakia, who was of the inhabitants of Gilead, and said unto Ahab, as the Lord power of Israel liveth, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. Right? Now, the reason for reading this again is to show that Elijah was called a Tishbite. Right? Why was he called a Tishbite? Let me see if I could pull it up in the blue letter. Right. So I went into the word Tishbite here. Alright. Not sure if you could have heard it, because of the Bluetooth headset. But it says Tishbe, right? No, it's a Tishbite, which means captivity, right? And I like this because it's so accurate, right? But it says the home of Elijah, right? The home, that is where he lived, right? It's a site unknown, but maybe the town of Tishbe, right? Which was Tishbe, right? It's an inhabitant of Tishbe, or Tishbai, or Tisheb, right? So it's an inhabitant, right? Which goes back to this one on top here. It said the home of Elijah, because that is where he stayed, right? So he was called a Tishbite, right? Again, like if you live in America, you'll be called an American, right? Because that's where you stay. What was your nationality? What's Elijah's nationality? He's an Israelite, right? Because the Lord ain't gonna be speaking to no no heathen to prophesy unto his people. You understand? Because when they also go to Nahum, right? Nahum 1, right? It say the burden of Nineveh, right? The book of the vision of Nahum, the Elkoshite, right? So there's another example, right? And the fact about the way it said I'm reading NLT, it said this message concerning Nineveh came as a vision to Nahum who lived in Elkosh, right? This the NLT alone tell you, right? Because the first part say the message concerning Nineveh, right? Now why would the Lord have a heathen, right? No, I'm not saying the Lord never came unto no heathen and gave them messages before, because I mean he did it with the king Nebuchadnezzar, right? He was a heathen, right? He gave him a vision, but guess who broke it down? An Israelite, right? Daniel broke it down, right? So I'm not saying it can't happen, but the thing about it is that, a matter of fact, let me give you the example in the sense of with Daniel, right? Because Daniel, he have his book in the Bible that he wrote it down, because if the Lord was dealing with heathens, he would have let Nebuchadnezzar wrote it down in the book how it came about. You understand? And the Lord still would have revealed it to us through the Holy Spirit, right? He still would have broken it down for us, right? But the Lord let his prophet and Israelite deal with it. You understand? He let his prophet deal with it. So the same thing here. Nahum is an Israelite, right? But it said what? Who lived in Elkosh. You understand? He lived there, right? He lived there. He's not an Elkoshite, right? Let me go into the word Elkoshite as well. All right. Right. It says Elkoshi, right? Elkoshite is a God the ensnarer, right? Then the other part it says a native and or descendant of Elkosh, right? A native, right? Or descendant of Elkosh, right? So when they say Elkoshite, it could either mean somebody who actually is an Elkoshite, right? Or someone who just stays there. You understand? Because it's like, for instance, with Paul, right? It's like, for instance, with Paul, right? I think I should go into that now, right? Because Paul was known as we know Paul was an Israelite, right? But he was called a Roman or a Christian. So like, let me get it. I don't want to butcher it, right? Acts 22, right, and 25, right? So this is Acts 22:25. It say, and as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and condemned and uncondemned, right? So yeah, it was Roman, right? I don't mind. So Paul basically professing himself to be a Roman. In fact, let me read it in the NLT, right? It says, when they tied Paul down to lash him, Paul said to the officer standing there, is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried? Yeah. So he was a Roman citizen, right? Meaning what, he dwelled there. You understand? He wasn't an Edomite, right? An Edomite have no place in this Bible in the sense of writing it. You know, it say when the officer heard this, he went to the commander and asked, what are you doing? This man is a Roman citizen, right? So the commander went over and asked Paul, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? Yes, I certainly am, Paul replied. I am too, the commander muttered, and it costs me plenty. Paul answered, but I am a citizen by birth, right? So he was born there. It said the soldiers who were about to interrogate Paul quickly withdrew when they heard he was a Roman citizen, and the commander was frightened because he had ordered him bound and whipped, right? So he was born there. Paul was born there, right? But does that make him an Edomite? No, it does not, right? Because he probably might have looked like them, you know. But the thing about it is what? He had an Israelite father, right? He had an Israelite father, right? And we know the Lord spoke highly and dealt highly with Paul, right? I mean, for instance, look how many books he have, right? He written so many books, you understand? And he testified of all the prophets, before him, right? I did a video on that, right? A little 3-part series, right, dealing with Paul is a man of the Lord. You understand? Because he agreed with the book of Isaiah, the book of Hosea, right? Even King David. You understand? And King David had a lot of books as well, right? King Solomon, right, who was Yahushai. You understand? He agreed with all those books, right? So why not with that Edomite, right? Which are those devils, right? Come and agree with all the prophets of the past, right? And why would the Lord even allow for this devil to have so many books written to the Israelites about his condemnation? You understand? That don't make any sense, right? So it just shows that what he lived there, right? It's like the same thing with Cornelius, right? But first, let me prove, right, that Paul was an Israelite, right? This is Romans 11 and 1. It says, I say then, had the Most High cast away his people, Yahweh forbid. For I also am an Israelite, right? For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin, right? So Paul was a Benjamite, right? But he lived and he was born and raised, right, in the Roman, in the born and raised in Rome, right? He was born and raised in Rome. So he was a Roman, right? Again, just like us. I was born and raised in Trinidad, so I would be called what? A Trinidadian. If somebody asks me, what am I? Right? I wouldn't tell them Israelite, I would tell them Trinidadian. If I tell them Israelite, they wouldn't know what the hell I'm talking about. You understand? Because of the whitewashing, and the covering up of the judges and the faces and all these things, right? They wouldn't even say, if they used to talk nationality, they wouldn't even say, well, they would say Trinidadian because they think that is nationality, right? But in terms of race, right, which is technically the same thing, but for them it's different, they would say I'm an African, right? They would think that I'm an African, right? Because to them, Israelites are something spiritual, right? That meaning anybody could be an Israelite, which is just going off. You understand? Because if the Lord say he only deal with the Moabites, as I always give the example. If the Lord say if he only dealing with the land of Moab, right? Does that mean we could be spiritual Chinese? That don't make no sense. You understand? Is literal nation of people, is a literal nation of people. If he was dealing with the Edomites, right? We can't just be spiritually Edomites to call ourselves the name of the Lord. These other nations, they don't even want to serve our power. They have their own idols, their own gods. You understand? So it just don't make any sense, right? But let's go to Salakia. Let's go to Acts 10 and 1. Right? This dealing with Cornelius, right? Because Cornelius was an Israelite as well, and this is something a Christian came up to me about as well, right? When they tried to prove to me that Cornelius, because he was in the Roman army, right? He was an Edomite basically, right? But he himself was just a citizen, right? So this Acts 10 and 1, it said there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band, right? And we know a centurion was what? It's basically a police officer, right? Which further proves the point, right? Because it's like, for instance, if I decide to go America, join the police force, right? Does that change that I'm an Israelite? No. It will change my citizenship from Trinidadian to American, basically, right? But it doesn't change my nationality, doesn't change my race, right? Because even like some Israelites would do, right? Bleach out the skin, right? To look like these devils, right? It's still not going to change my nationality because by blood, by birth, right? I am an Israelite, right? So though Paul himself, not Paul Salaki, though Cornelius himself was in the Roman army as basically a police officer, it doesn't make him a Roman, right? But he was there. It's a devout man and one that feared the Most High with all his house, right? What Edomite you know fear the Lord, right? The scriptures say thou hatest instruction, right? These devils hate instruction. They hate the Lord, right? What Edomite you know gonna fear the Most High? None of them. In fact, they are proud, right? So how could he be an Edomite, right? They say which gave much alms to the people, and prayed to the Most High always, right? So hey, what Edomite you know gonna give alms, right? As the scriptures say, if they roughly paraphrasing, right? If they do good unto someone, right? It's not because they're willing to, basically. They just, they do it. They either do it because it's convenient for their plan, or it's because the Lord put his spirit on them to help, right? Just like how the Lord, for instance, like we say in work, right? The Lord say he'll make his enemies at such be at peace with him, roughly paraphrasing that as well, because I could testify to that, because at that time I going through hell with my co-workers, you understand? But when I prayed about it, the Lord did what, right? The next day I went, everybody was basically cool. Now of course I ain't gonna smile keep with them and try to friend up with them, but they basically gave me a break. So the same thing with these devils, the Lord could cause these devils to relax himself. You understand? Because at the end of the day, he's the one in control. You understand? As wicked as they are, right? So verse 3 says, it says he saw in a vision evidently about the ninth hour of the day an angel of the Most High coming in to him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thy alms are come up from a memorial before the Most High. Right? So now that is the next thing, right? Why would the angel send, why would the Lord send an angel, right, to an Edomite, and then who said the Edomite be afraid, in the sense of, no, angels are scary, so if the Lord really sent an angel to an Edomite, he might really get frightened, right? But we both know, right, or we all know that he didn't get scared in the sense of just only his appearance, right? It's because he know it's an angel from the Lord. You understand? Hence the reason why he say, What is it, Lord? You understand? He knows it's an angel of the Lord, right? And the Lord basically was giving him something good, right? Because when you read the NLT, it says Cornelius stared at him in terror, right? He said, What is it, sir? Right? But it said, Lord, right? It said he asked the angel, and the angel replied, Your prayers and gifts to the poor have been received by the Most High as an offering, right? Because what the scriptures say, right? Charity cover a multitude of sins, right? So what Edomite gonna be? Look along this Edomite, these devils in rulership, and all they do is just put things harder and harder and breaking up our household, right? Breaking up our connection to the Lord, you know. And just so this one Edomite just decide, he gonna give because you know what? I feel to serve Yahweh Shai because I'm a spiritual Israelite. No, of course not. That don't work so, right? That don't work so. And then the Lord gonna bless him by basically telling him to your gifts and your offering, well, your gifts, right, to the poor, right, and your prayers, it went up to the Most High, and the Lord love it. The Lord not gonna accept no prayer from no devil. You understand? That don't make no sense, right? So it just goes to show these men, right, these renowned men are Israelites, You understand? They were just named after the city that they stay in, right? So I had other precept here. Can't remember exactly what it was, but let's see. Yes. Second Samuel 11:2. It says, and it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. Right? So this is what I was speaking about earlier, right? I really was supposed to bring this out first, but hey, it said, and David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, is not this Bathsheba the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Right? The Hittite it say, right? It say, and David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified for her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. Right? Well, I don't need to read down into all of that, right? How she get pregnant and whatever. Right? But even here you could see that, it says Uriah the Hittite again, right? Actually, hold on. I ain't able to look for that right now, right? But hey, this speaking about Uriah the Hittite, right? Because that's the land where he stayed, right? Let's go into Hittite and see what it says. Let's see here. Right? Chayth, right? It says, I'll just read point A. It said the nation descended from Heth, the second son of Canaan, right? Once inhabitants of central Anatolia, right, modern Turkey, later in North Lebanon, right? So Canaan, right, which is what, a Hamite, right? So does was Uriah a Hamite? No, he was not, right? In fact, he was an Israelite. You understand? So this was just a quick lesson, briefly to show that not it's not always what it seems, in the sense of not because you see this person like Nahum, right, is El Koshite, Paul is a Roman, it don't necessarily means that they're heathens, right? It just speaking about where they stay, you know. So hey, I hope this lesson was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Shai, right? Till next time, Shalom.